Good evening and welcome to the COVID-19 update on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Walker. Here are some of the highlights this hour. As students in exit classes resume in Lagos and other states across the country, Kano State government yet to set a date for school reopening, even though school administrators say they are ready. Cross River State government continues its search for active COVID-19 cases as it takes its campaign to border communities. And new tests for COVID-19 and the flu that can give results in 90 minutes are to be rolled out in the United Kingdom. Now, global recoveries from the coronavirus has surpassed 10 million, while in Africa, 601,823 have been discharged across the continent, with almost 20,000 deaths recorded. Nigeria's coronavirus cases have declined steadily over the past week in daily cases, moving from 648 on the 27th of July to about 304 new cases last night, according to the breakdown. For August the 2nd, Lagos recorded a slight increase with 81 new cases compared to its previous figure of 65 infections for Saturday, while the FCT dropped quite significantly from 130 to 39 new positive samples. Now, other states recorded some cases as well, like Abia with 31, Kaduna 24, Rivers 23, 16 in Plateau State, 13 in Cross River, Ebonyi and Ondo 12 each, Ekiti and Edo 11 each, 10 each in Benue and Nasarawa, while Ogun recorded 6, Gombe recorded 5 cases. On the flip side, in terms of the daily recovery rates, the numbers were at its lowest in 10 days, with 221 people discharged on Sunday, bringing the current total number of recoveries to 20,308. Also, the death toll rose to 888 after 5 new deaths were announced by the NCDC. Now, Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State has approved Monday, August the 10th this year as the resumption date for the senior secondary school SSS 3 students that are expected to begin their WAEC exams slated for August 17th. This is in compliance with the announcement of the Federal Ministry of Education, which advised students to resume from the 4th of August. The Kaduna State Commissioner for Education, Mr. Shehu Mohammed, directed all secondary school principals to make arrangements to receive SS3 boarding students on the 9th and day students on the 10th of August. He also advises all administrators of public and private schools in the state to use the 1-week period to make adequate preparations and put all COVID-19 guidelines in place. He further warns that no school is allowed to open before the 10th of August. Now, some of these guidelines include reduced hours of work or revision to 4 hours per shift, the strict social distancing both in classes, laboratories, libraries and hostels, consistency of temperature monitoring and handling of any suspected case of COVID-19 to health authorities. The government further advised parents to ensure proper arrangements for safe transportation of their children to and from schools. Now, on the situation of preparedness for schools in Kano, our correspondent reports that schools have remained under lock and key following directives from the Kano State government due to the pandemic. Like a few other states, the Kano State government is yet to give a date for reopening, even though the schools say that they are prepared. Mr. George Ayome, one of the directors of a school in the state, speaks on the situation, and some parents also express their frustrations.
After the announcement from the federal government that schools were going to open for the exiting students, we had a meeting with our parents from SS3 to brief them on the protocols and what is expected of them. And we let them know that the situation is serious and we're going to take those protocols very seriously because we're only as strong as our weakest link. So They are ready, they are aware. Students and parents are ready to send their kids to school. We are ready.
Well, over in Lagos State, schools have reopened, and they did today, with only students in their final years allowed to return. At one of the schools in Lagos, our correspondent reports that at the Vetland Senior Grammar School, Agege, hand basins, running water, sanitizers, thermometers for temperature checks have been put in place in order to keep the students safe this period. School social distancing is also physically observed by the students in the classrooms, and students have their face masks on. These safety measures are in line with the guidelines on schools' resumption for transitional students, in this case, who have been allowed to write their exams. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education says that an emergency room has been set aside for students or teachers who may have symptoms of COVID-19.
Schools were provided sanitizers, and hand wash provisions were made. In addition to the one the Lagos State government did, the schools in earnest preparation had already also made provisions for all this. So I can categorically conclude that the school has more than enough provision to take care of the pupils while they are in school for this period of WAEC examination. Apart from that, as we have observed this morning, we went around the classes to also remind the students of the protocols of COVID-19, to make sure they guard themselves, to make sure that they are not infected. In addition to that, we have asked all the school managers to make provision for emergency isolation room, so that after taking the temperature and it's discovered that this child's temperature is above normal, definitely the child will be separated and will be taken to the nearest COVID screening center. They've been given all the numbers to call, so the child will be given necessary attention.
Well, over in Bayelsa State, the chairman of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, NUT, in the state says the state government has to ensure that measures are put in place to protect students and also the teachers before they can all get back to the classrooms. Here's more from our correspondent there, Dobra Timiwood.
The Bayelsa state government is yet to announce an official date for the resumption of schools for students participating in the WAEC exams. I'm at the Central APA Secondary School in the Yenagoa Metropolis, and as you can see, it's been overtaken by weeds. Earlier on, I spoke with the chairman of the NUT Bayelsa State Chapter regarding what it would take for teachers to go back into the classroom, and here's what he said.
Our need is that the schools should be fumigated, disinfected. Then the teachers and the students will get there and prepare for their studies.
There are 39 active cases for the coronavirus in Bayelsa State as at this morning. Now, out of the 339 confirmed cases for COVID-19, 279 have already been discharged, and the state has experienced 21 deaths. From Yenagoa, Dobra Timiwood for COVID-19 updates.
Meanwhile, in Cross River State, the government continues its campaign of active case search for COVID-19 to border communities occasioned by the increased rate of positive cases in the state. The Commissioner for Health was at the Obudu border axis between Nigeria and Cameroon to create more awareness on the importance of adhering to the precautionary measures on COVID-19.
We are carrying out active case search and surveillance at these communities, and we're also sensitizing them and making available the face masks for them to use to protect themselves. So we tell them the reason why they should use face masks in public to protect themselves and those around them, and also we support them with those face masks. So we've been able to distribute close to 500 face masks, and we will continue to go from one border community to the other to continue sensitization and, of course, active case search surveillance in these communities. We've taken samples from some of them, and we'll be sending the samples to the lab for immediate testing, and results will be sent back to them. But basically, what we're out here doing on the field is to ensure that people know more about coronavirus and that they can stay safe even at this time where coronavirus is ravaging the whole world.
Dr. Hassan Sule, a public health academic at the Department of Public Health and head of clinical National Open University of Nigeria, joins us from our Abuja studios. Thank you for joining us on the program. Let's first take a look at resumption of schools for exiting students in line with the COVID-19 protocols. What are your expectations, or perhaps from some of the reports that you've seen?
Oh, thank you for having me. My expectations are that the reopening of secondary schools for the exit classes would be the beginning of the recovery of the economy in a wider scale. And as the proprietors have said, and as the authorities have put out regulations and guidelines on how to handle students when they come back, I expect that enforcing those guidelines, there wouldn't be any net increase in positivity of the cases. And from technical aspects of it, from the pathology of disease aspects, with the guidelines, they ensure that students, even if there is a positive person around, there isn't much of the virus that is contracted by any student. So it will be the way vaccines work. What I mean is, even if there is positivity, I don't see a situation where the dose of the infecting amount of the virus being high enough to cause positivity or illness in these kids. Then again, for their age group, they seem to show a very good immune response to the virus. Looking at what the NCDC has done, most of the people who have come out positive, about a quarter of them are between the ages of 31 and 40. I didn't see any categorization that reflected the age we're talking about, around the teenage ages. But generally speaking, I'd say their age is well in an immune way, in an immunological point of view, from an immunological point of view, and will be able to handle any challenges.
Sule, perhaps finally, Lagos has reopened, and a few of the schools we observed the students were wearing the face mask. But some people have asked for how long. I mean, if there is physical distancing, is there also a need to wear the masks, the face masks?
From a theoretical point of view, no. If there is physical distancing, that would have taken care of transmission. So there would be no need for protection with face mask. But in practice, people would not always be 2 meters apart. People would come close to each other unwittingly, without thinking about it. People would want to shake hands, talk to each other. So yes, in that case, it would be wise, it would be the smart thing to do to protect from all positive fronts. Yeah.
All right, we'd like to thank you so much, Dr. Hassan Sule, a public health academic at the Department of Public Health, Head Clinic, National Open University of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
We have more on the global response to the pandemic when we return. Stay with us. At the Presidential Task Force briefing today in Abuja, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, expressed concerns over the reopening of schools, which he believes should be done with a lot of caution. He confirmed that the railway transportation system will partially open with the commencement of the Abuja-Kaduna services.
I want to remind us that the global increase in number of confirmed cases of the virus still calls for increased vigilance, committed adherence to protocols, and determination to take personal responsibility. Just before the Salah break, the second phase of the eased lockdown was extended by 1 week. We assured Nigerians that the railway transportation system would be partially open on Wednesday, 29 July, with the commencement of the Abuja-Kaduna rail services. I'm pleased to confirm that that promise has been kept with full compliance with the measures prescribed. Similarly, we informed you about the date that exit examination classes in schools would reopen, preparatory to commencement of examination. I wish to reinstate that the education sector is critical for the development of our children and our nation. Reopening the sector is also a source of concern based on the fact that the school system remains a veritable ground for increasing community transmission if appropriate protocols are not put in place, and more importantly, adhered to. In this regard, the Presidential Task Force wishes to implore stakeholders to ensure that the agreed protocols are put in place and measures strictly adhered to.
Dr. Soji Billy Rose is a medical laboratory scientist and virologist. He joins us from our Abuja studios for more on this. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'd like to start with the numbers we're seeing in the FCT, which dropped quite significantly from 130 to 39 new positive samples yesterday. We understand also that schools and the FCT are resuming and preparing to reopen tomorrow for exit classes. Do you think that it is safe to reopen, seeing as the FCT and maybe a few other states, if you look at the cases that we've been getting in the last 3 days, seem to have significantly reduced?
Yes, that's quite cheering. It means that the operators are doing something right for the cases to be dropping. It's either we are getting the virus containment strategy correct, or probably more testings were not done in the days were under review. So, but I think it's very good to note that our schools are resuming. You know, most of the students will be interacting with each other expectedly. It will be difficult to be able to put in very strict measures that will reduce or stop complete interaction of these students. So what I think we should do is, number one, to increase, to ensure that there is mass testing of these students, you know, across board. Government should take the baselines of these students, get them tested. Let's know what the baselines are, what the statistics are for each of the schools. So I want each school to work together with the federal ministry, their state ministries of health, work together with the various departments of public health in the various states, so that there can be a collaboration to get these students tested. Let's have their baselines. Since we do not have vaccines to administer that will probably, you know, stop, that will confer protection or immunity on these students, we can do another follow-up testing after 2 weeks, so that we'll be able to see whether there are a few cases of positives among the students that we can sufficiently isolate. So it is very important for government, you know, to support massive screening for these students as they return back for the academic activity. So I want to, ask that government should please ensure that they support these schools, either private or government institutions, for testing. Then that is one. Then there must be sufficient we must be able to deploy sufficiently IPC protocols, infection prevention and control measures within the schools. The protocol and guideline that the government has released for school resumption is quite robust, and I believe that if well implemented, we're going to have very reduced cases of transmission among the students. So let this protocol be well implemented. Let them be enforced. Let the students have a lot of awareness among the students. I expect that as they return back to school, there will be, some kind of seminars, presentation to students. They will have probably COVID-19 clubs, where they will be able to learn get more information on the virus, and then understand how to be able to adequately protect themselves from getting this infection. So these are things we should do. And also I believe that other safety protocols, for instance, schools could invest in having decontaminated chambers where people can get themselves decontaminated at the point of assessing either the classrooms, the dormitories, or even the staff rooms. These things are things that we could do. Also, we can install, UV lights in the classrooms and the dormitories and in the staff rooms as well. Since these viruses are usually transmitted through aerosols and droplets, when we have the UV lights installed in some of these centers, the classes, the dormitories, it will help to appropriately decontaminate the environment and make it safe for learning and for other activities that the students and their teachers will be well engaged in.
Also, I guess with a lot of monitoring as well to ensure that these measures are strictly followed. Thank you so much, Soji Biderose, medical laboratory scientist and virologist. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Now, new rapid tests that can detect coronavirus in just 90 minutes will start to be used in care homes and labs from next week. The two new types of tests do not require trained health staff to operate them and can also pick up other winter viruses. Currently, most results from tests carried out in person are returned the following day, while home kits take longer. Here's more on the Global Update report. According to the BBC report, the number of people known to be infected with COVID-19 in the country is almost double official figures at 451,024, as opposed to the 278,827 being reported by the Health Ministry. There have been irregularities in data between national and regional levels, which some local authorities have spoken up about, and statisticians have tried to give alternative estimates. In the UK, millions of COVID-19 tests able to detect the virus within 90 minutes will be rolled out in the country. According to the Health Ministry, after criticisms that there has not been enough testing, especially in nursing homes. The two tests, Lampore and DNA Nudge, will be rolled out as the country prepares to face the pandemic in winter, and neither will need to be administered by a health professional. India's Interior Minister Amit Shah has been hospitalized with COVID-19 as the country's daily cases top 50,000 for a fifth straight day. The country reported 52,972 new confirmed infections in the past 24 hours, taking the total to 1.8 million, the third highest in the world after the US and Brazil. Residents of the capital of the Philippines, Manila, say they fear stricter lockdown measures recently announced by President Rodrigo Duterte as COVID-19 cases continue to spike across the country. The president approved the so-called modified enhanced community quarantine after local health worker advocacy groups called for stricter measures, saying the country was losing the fight against the virus. Finally, 5 Latin American countries are among the 10 most affected in the world, and cases are set to be moving towards the 5 million mark in the region as a whole. For more updates, take a look at our website, channelstv.com. It has the latest on the pandemic. All you need to do is log on, access news and health and several other areas from Africa, Nigeria, and around the world. That's the program this evening. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Wonka. Keep safe.